Welcome back, and it's time for our newspaper headlines this morning, starting with the Daily Times. Now we have alleged 80.2 billion naira fraud. Again, court denies Yahaya Bello overseas medical trip. Bauchi governor to deploy drones to fight bandits. We have retired police officers protest in Abuja, threaten to disrupt NAS on page 2. 2027, only PDP can defeat Tinubu, says NPS. Reps investigate 25 insurance coils over alleged fraud. Crack in LP widens as Obi's VP identifies with Abure faction. Imo Diaspora Group lauds Tinubu's approval of Southeast Investment COI. And finally, on the Daily Times, PH International Airport generates over 21.4 billion naira in 4 years. ICE PPP expansion. You can find that on page 12 of the Daily Times newspaper. Now to the Nigerian Tribune. Speculators panic as $1.31 billion FPI inflows, market reforms narrow exchange rate gap. Experts laud CBN for driving rate convergence. Obi's running mate Dati offers to resolve LP crisis. Present at NEC meeting by Abure-led group. IGP cautions protesting ex-police officers against external influence. Protesters insist on exit from contributory pension scheme. And on health, novel blood test predicts preeclampsia months before onset. Nigeria's economy expands, records 3.13% growth in the first quarter on page 6. Over 250 billion naira UBE intervention fund unutilized by state governments. This is from UBEC. Says 49.2 billion naira disbursed in 6 months. And Lagos to launch 500 billion naira agriculture initiative to end food shortage. 3.7 million people face food insecurity in northeast Nigeria. This is from ICRC. Now to the Guardian newspaper. We have on the headlines, Shetima laments depletion of 90% forest cover. 2027, PDP declares Tinubu bad product, convenes 101st NEC meeting. Awujale's burial, there will be grave repercussions, says Ogun traditional chief. Electricity tariff imbalance triggers new subsidy inefficiency debates. Alright, we have IGP pledges reform as retired officers protest poor pension under contributory scheme. Confusion in LP as Dati walks tightrope amid factions, coalition moves. Falana Sani faults Kani Benedok over citizenship claim. State FCT's unutilized 250 billion naira education grants worry UBEC. Nigeria's GDP hits 373 trillion naira, remains 4th biggest in Africa after rebasing. And finally, on The Guardian, court orders forfeiture of $222,729 recovered from Chinese nationals. And over to the Blueprint newspaper. Jega speaks on potentials of livestock exports as Blueprint unveils 2024 awards winners. Alright. SGF Akume chairs occasion. Leadership results define true honor. Salisu Umar. Alright, that is it on the Blueprint newspaper. Over to the Daily Trust. Tinubu's directive on Benue crisis yet to be implemented. This is from Otom. Nigeria sliding towards authoritarian rule, NLC. Police pensioners hold protests in Abuja, Kwara, Plateau, others. Rebasing, Nigeria's GDP hits 372.82 trillion naira, as poverty rate worsens. We have Ganduje's replacement tops agenda as APC holds NEC meeting Thursday. Abuja demolition, victim dies hours after. Northeast to pay highest rate in proposed electricity tariff hike. And 2027 PDP NEC to review report on zoning national convention on page 13 of the Daily Trust. Now to the Punch newspaper. Nigeria now spends half its revenue on debts, presidential panel. NAS showdown, Natasha faces police blockade today. Businesses expect rate cut as MPC reconvenes today. Electricity Act fallout, Gencos, Discos rage as states begin tariff cuts. Enugu defense power bill slash as Ondo, Plateau, others join tariff cuts. Gencos threaten shutdown. Pension revolt, IG vows action after ex-police officers nationwide protest. Services sector fuels 3.13% economic growth. Gunmen shoot 2 Nigerians dead in South Africa. And finally, Awujale Ogun government prepares for legal battle with Ifa Council. Now to the Daily Sun newspaper. On the headlines of the Sun, Assembly by-election complaints, petitions trail APC primaries in 12 states. Retired officers defy rain, storm police headquarters, NAS, others over poor salary, pension. IGP meets protesters, denies opposing exit from pension scheme. LP crisis deepens, with rider Obi's running mate joins forces with Abure faction, declares presidential ambition. Governors, media leaders, others grace Lateef Jakande lecture on page 26. Again, ex-Kogi Governor Bello's request for foreign medical leave denied. FG raises the alarm over Nigeria's forest depletion. And finally, pay our 35,000 naira wage award arrears, civil servants. You can find all of these and more on the newspapers of today. And that is it on our newspaper headlines this morning. Now we are moving over to our review. And as always, Chris Maduka is here to do justice to that. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Uche. Good morning, the world. Uche, you fell short of telling people to also pick copies of the newspapers because we only talk about the headlines, but the details are found thereof inside the newspapers. Good morning. Once again, my name, like Kevin said, Christian Chibuzo Maduka. Whatever you added to it. All right. So let's start with the last one, the Daily Sun. Which is also a new entry into our newspapers we review here. LP crisis. Obi running mate joins forces with Abure faction, declares presidential ambition. It's getting more interesting. It's getting more interesting. Nigerian politics is gathering us. But we can see the hand of distractors and the spoilers playing around the political parties. I hope the political parties know what they are doing. Because they play the hands of the mega parties, then you just be counted as numbers, and all your effort will just go in vain. And I hope, I'm not a politician, but some of your actions, looking at it from far, looks to me like that of a football, football event watcher. When you are sitting at the bench, you always see the mistake of people, but when you are inside, you cannot play better. I give it to you guys in Nigeria, politicians in Nigeria, you are extraordinary creations, because things you come up with, some of us cannot conceive them. If Abure now joins rank with Dati, that means the big Dati that gave Nigerians shockers have now been divided. I hope not so. But even if at that, Nigeria continues, politicians should come and go, but Nigeria will continue. So no problem. Let's watch how it plays out. And another we are in that place is again, ex-Kogi Governor Bello request for foreign medical trip. It appears in other newspapers earlier mentioned, but my feeling is that all we have said here earlier, Bello should go back to Kogi, go back to Lokoja, go to all the hospitals he built there, and then dust one of the beds and lie down there for them to treat him and check him. What makes him feel with that huge amount of money they are alleged that he cannot account for, that it will be easy for him to just japa to a hospital abroad where he will be paying 3,500 pounds a day. I mean, put the money there in Lokoja or any of the Kogi hospitals, and then you see wonders. Because my father told me, if you feed the native doctor very, very well, he can enter the evil forest to harvest herbs and roots. So, while taking the good food to the foreign native doctors, give it to the doctors in Nigeria, whether they are native or local orthodox. You will see how they are going to do great things. And that's one of the things that Nigerian politicians are not taught about. Other people's field keep looking greener, and our own will always look leaner. Now the Jenkos, yeah? You were about to ask me.
Oh yes, I was about to speak on something about our economy on Nigerian Tribune and on The Guardian. It says, Nigeria's economy expands, records 3.13% growth. And then on The Guardian, it says Nigeria's GDP hits 373 trillion naira, remains fourth biggest in Africa after rebasing. But we still have issues of...
But you see, he didn't read the word here. He said, amidst
poverty rate.
That is all we are saying. Nigerian growth seems to be on paper. It's not gainsaying. Go to the field. Are these people churning out these figures? Can they take survey? Can they call for stakeholders meeting? Can they engage people at different levels? Can't the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics that churn out these useless figures? These figures are totally useless. They don't reflect in our lives. I mean, they tell us in a percentage of growth. How has our stomach grown? Is it the worms in our stomach that are growing? Because the thing has eaten up all our intestines. Nigeria is in trouble. And then the churning out figure telling us that that's how the other way, you know, we hear how our banks are declaring massive profits at the expense of Nigerians. So in an economy that is not balanced, only certain group of people are, some people will sit down in Abuja declaring how Nigeria has grown. But Nigeria is a massive big country. If you have grown in Abuja with your figures, what happened to the villages? And then you will pick whatever led you to Abuja. And nobody is caring about it.
Because even on the Punch, I also saw something in line with what you're saying, that Nigeria now spends half its revenue on debt. This is the presidential panel saying this.
And I remember I told you that debt is the only thing that will finish Nigeria and most third worlds if we are still in thought. Because I remember when I was growing up so many years ago, they keep telling us Nigeria is a third world country. After with all the recession and hyperinflation and cut in services and depreciation in our welfare, we have gone up to seventh world. So we are not growing. We can see we are not growing. How can we be dying and you are telling us we are growing GDP? These are useless language they used to confuse us. Who turned out the GDP? What is GDP to a woman selling ugu in the market? That's what most of these people want. To survive, eat and sleep. You own your Abuja mansions, dried in your escalates, and your presidential yacht. They don't care. They just want life. And they're not getting it. You are still speaking Oyibo instead of keeping quiet. We are not making moves. We are not growing, because I keep using this analogy. Obi, go army. Where is the boot? Nigeria GDP has grown certain percentage. We are fourth in Africa. They are not ashamed to report that. Nigeria, the sixth in growing in the crude oil production in the world, with the massive land of over 75% arid ground for agriculture, with the 34 mineral resources buried under this earth. Nigeria. Oh, it wasn't a mistake when it said Nigeria we held it. But the people who have inherited Nigeria we held over years have desecrated Nigeria. I don't know where they stand, because most of them we're singing national anthem, they don't open their mouth, because they know that Nigeria, they are not hailing, they are just discriminating, because Nigeria will hunt them. They have, what they say, eating Nigeria dry in the name of national cake. And they are the people I say, because it's no more when they say the poor people are the ones who are massively producing children. It's not true. Most of these rich people marry up to 10 wives with side chicks, and some of them are competing with King Solomon in the Bible. And they are the ones, but the only thing is that they keep getting in corruption to send those their massive families abroad, buying houses and all that, and they keep exploiting this economy. But God will visit them any of these days. That's my prayer. Whatever any man sow, he must reap, now or hereafter. That's all. So I'm interested in GENCO's discourse wage and state begins tariff cut. Here in Enugu, the Enugu Electric Regulation Commission has reduced. Yesterday the news broke that they have cut down 160 naira per whatever, however they measure the, and it was massive. And people were like, so why are the GENCOs and discos raging? You remember one of the Nigerian musicians who said, why are the whatever raging? So if they are raging, it means if the state tariff and electric regulatory commissions have seen this abuse and exploitation of our Nigerians through high tariffs, especially with electricity, and they cut it down, and the GENCOs and discos are raging. It means they have been doing us bad over time we never knew. So thank God for the State Regulation Commission who had come to cut tariffs. I hope they will not be stampeded into agreeing with the GENCOs and discos. In fact, we shouldn't have GENCOs and discos when we have the state should also create electric distribution. Since they now have regulation, they should have distribution companies. And the GENCOs and all should go home and sleep. Because all we are looking for at the bottom of the plate is either fish or meat. How do we survive as a people? Not how do we survive as individuals. The individuals can survive, there are few. Why the masses are, it's not fair. It doesn't balance. That is my only concern there.
Now, on the Daily Trust, a very interesting headline saying Tinubu's directive on Benue crisis yet to be implemented from autumn.
That is what tells you about Nigeria. The Nigeria wheel of progress, rolls slowly and slowly, because the people who implement these policies, they are the legendary, the illusion I keep using. When you carry another person's corpse, it will look as if we are carrying log of wood. How does it relate to them? They should go to your water and stay for one day. I see the agony of people who lost, some of them lost 12, 9, 20 people in their family. So when the president in his magnanimity visits and give direction, some people will stay back in Abuja and it will take them time to implement. That's Nigeria for you. Nobody has a way of implementing his own across. I keep asking. Because when the president will give an order, the president is giving some orders that should be implemented quickly. And I trust Nigerian president that he would have prepared before you make such order, there are provisions. There are agencies of government who will follow up to make this work. Everyone will go home, they will call for president, go home, and they will sit down there eating kola nut and guru. And people, actually, nobody has talked about the flood disaster in all those money they mentioned, and how many of them. Probably some people will load rice and go and share, and the money they will take time to come. And some of them will turn in those money around in the bank. Imagine when you put such money across the commercial banks 2 or 3 weeks or 1 month, how much it will yield. That's how some of them are corrupt and insensitive they can be. Blood money.
Now, these police officers on the Daily Times, they are still protesting. They protest in Abuja and they are threatening to disrupt NAS.
It's no more. I'm surprised that they're still threatening. If they had disrupted NAS, probably by now, it wouldn't be only the IGP we're talking. Probably the president of the Senate or the speaker of the Federal House would have spoken to. If they think that retired police officers wahala is only for retired officers and IGP and pension our police service commission, then they are missed the track, because the way I see these people, for them to summon courage to go to the street of Abuja, and if you know that their protest lasted more than a day, means that thing I said yesterday. If they send you as a policeman to go and they shoot tear gas on a fellow policeman who retired and didn't get his pension and graduate, will you go? Because I said it again, and I will say, a slave that sees where a fellow slave is being buried, we always know that's how the fate awaits you. So they will not say, after serving 35 years, this is what we mean, and he wants me to go and spray tear gas and disrupt them. I said, probably bring the army or Saladins and the other them to disperse. They see, they are looking at it. Let them settle it now, before even the serving policemen join the protest. Let them settle this now, because somebody said a vow action. Nigerians vow action, IGP vow action is one of the vow action after all the speaker of things will spoil. When the things spoil, they begin to vow action. Why are you always pursuing doing the last thing at last? When these people were old, they were not old one day. For them to decide to go to the street of Abuja to protest, it wasn't a 1 day or 2 days. Because for any man who has decided to commit suicide, the thought was not overnight thought. He must have thought over for these people to take this bold step. Retired police officers in Nigeria in 2025, precisely on 22nd day of July 2025, they went to the street. It's on record. And they have opened the room. We have never heard of retired police officers going on. This one has happened and it has gone down in history. It will repeat itself if nothing is done now. If they are vowing action, IGP vow action, we are not interested in vowed action. We want action taken. It sounds political when you are vowing action and people are suffering. Like my mother will tell me, and I say tabansi, obiga now. What tabansi means in Igbo is sorry, you are dying. It's like when Igbos go to a burial person, they will say sorry, the person who is bereaved will say, and everyone will say sorry, they will sit at the back and say, do you have 1 bottle of beer, a cold one? That's how sorry these people can be. So you see, though they're sorry, did not go anywhere. We are not interested in buying federal government condemn, we regret, we feel sorry. Action, show it in action.
All right, now before we go, there is this one on the Nigerian Tribune. Over 250 billion naira UBE intervention fund unutilized by state government, and they say that 92.4 billion naira disbursed in 6 months. It is also on the Guardian as well.
If they have such amount, we are saying any money that is spent is saved. They should push it back into the coffers. But believe me, you see these figures. Go and ask the state ministries of education and the UBEs, Universal Primary Education Boards, to return what they did not spend. You know why? One thing about poverty mentality. somebody might see money, opportunity to invest and they develop the people. You are pinching money that if you return it back, somebody will swallow it up and you will see. It's also unfortunate that the first time in the history of Nigeria, we say a sector received money and they didn't send it. But the issue is, where is it? That's why we talk about figures in Nigeria. No, these figures are just churning out like that. They are destructive. Where is the money? Put it. If it doesn't work in education, you see every school, all the private schools in Nigeria have been roofed. They are not sitting on the ground. They won't take lectures under mango trees or melana trees. These are normal now. All their field are paved and everywhere. The buildings are no more leaking. The roofs are no more leaking. And children, they're uniformed and they're being fed well. Then you have excess to push in other sectors. But here, what happens? Just go take a visit to schools around Enugu.
Yeah.
Beyond just take a look at what public schools look like. For some of them to believe that some of these big men in Nigeria pass through some of those public schools, even on humanitarian level, they can't even go back to those schools as old pupils, students or anything.
Yeah, alumni.
But that's it for you. In Nigeria, when they pass the road, once you pass the bridge, so they concerned, the bridge can break and then nothing happens. That is our problem.
All right.
God bless Nigeria. And I now add the clause for those who require undeserved the blessing.
All right. Thank you so much for your review this morning.
See Nature TV, news in your pocket.